Hello and welcome back to the stars, everybody. Welcome back to Starfield, where we're going back to old Earth, and we've got ourselves a pump shotgun to talk about today. So we've got the old Earth shotgun, which was probably one of my favorite weapons playing Starfield just in general. This was definitely one of my favorite weapons on my first playthrough, and it stayed as one of my favorite weapons all the way through New Game Plus. This one is a basic 12 gauge pump action shotgun that you can find in a couple of places throughout Starfield. You're probably not going to find this super early on. There is a couple of places that you can definitely go to get these early on, but for the most part I would say that this is a mid to later game weapon, depending on level, of course. So let's talk about the base stats of the older shotgun. First up, this does 73 damage base, which is very high. Most of the shotguns are very high. This one's even higher than normal. I think the only shotgun that does more damage than this, at least baseline, is the Breach and probably the Big Bang, if you count both damage types. So it is on the higher end of shotguns and just the higher end of weapons in general. This is the only weapon that fires the 12 gauge shotgun shell. There is no other weapons that this shares the ammo with, so it does not compete against anything. This holds 6 rounds in it, which is fine. That's more than enough. This has a whopping 6 rate of fire. It does have a fairly slow rate of fire, but it's not terribly slow because you do have to wait for the pump action each time. That's fine. You can up it a little bit with like hair trigger, and then it's not so bad either. This has 20 meters of effective range, the same as most handguns and the same as most shotguns, which is perfectly fine. This has low accuracy like a lot of the shotguns say they do, although I'm pretty sure that this is just like for all pellet count, or it counts for the amount of spread from the pellets. So it's a lot more accurate than what it would seem, and at the ranges you're going to be using it at, it's actually quite accurate for a shotgun. And this thing weighs 3.6 weight, which is not super heavy. It's not super light though either. It's about on par with a lot of shotguns and with a lot of rifles. So let's go over the pros and the cons of this weapon. For pros, this one does have high damage, and it has pretty high damage per second. It also has pretty decent range for a shotgun. Even though it only has 20 meters of effective range, since it has such high damage, the damage drop-off is not that bad outside of those 20 meters either. You can actually use this fairly effectively at longer ranges. Then for the cons of this, it does have kind of rare ammo. 12 gauge is not the most common ammo to find. Sometimes vendors sell it. Usually you can get like 20 of it at a time from a vendor. Good news about that though is that you're not going through this very quickly, just because you usually don't need more than 1 or 2 shots. This also has a slow rate of fire and a slow reload, since you have to reload each shell one at a time, although you can cancel the reload whenever you'd like, which is nice. So then if you only need to load 1 shell in or 2 shells in, then you can, and then just keep firing away. It's great that you're not animation locked. On my shotgun tier list, I put the Old Earth shotgun up into S tier, and I think I would keep it into S tier. The Old Earth shotgun by itself is actually surprisingly good. It is very strong. Even if you don't have an upgraded version of it, like a refined version or an advanced version, it's still really solid. It can carry you quite a ways, and it puts down things very quickly. The reload can be a little bit sluggish, the pump can be a little bit sluggish, and finding the ammo can be sometimes a pain, but assuming you have a decent amount, assuming you have a couple of shells with this, it does a lot of work very well at very close range. So I'm comfortable saying that it's still like an S tier weapon. It's probably on the low end of S tier. Let's talk about a modded version and where I'd put that. So starting out of the barrel, we have 2 barrels. You can either put a regular barrel or a short barrel on this. I usually just keep the regular barrel on this. The short barrel does reduce your accuracy, and it does reduce your recoil control. It makes it so you can ADS a little bit quicker. It's fine if you like that, but I usually just stay with the standard barrel and just have the benefits of that. Then for a muzzle, you do have quite a few options with this. I'd recommend one of 2, either go with the choke or with the suppressor. Suppressor if you're going with sneak, because sneak gets you more damage if you have a suppressor on your weapon. You just get more damage from that perk, which is pretty awesome. You could argue that you don't really need it with this weapon. The choke gives you longer range and reduces your spread. I usually go with that one just so that I can have that extra long range on the shotgun, because this one is actually quite good at very long range. The damage drop off is not that bad, but if you don't want that, then the suppressor is a great option too. For a stock and grip, I would recommend that you just put the standard stock on this. It makes so you have better accuracy and better recoil. And then for a magazine and battery, I'd recommend one of 2 different shots depending on what you want. Either flechette rounds or slugs. Flechette rounds make it so you can bleed targets, which is pretty good, and they still have pretty long range. Slugs give you the most amount of damage, and they condense your damage into a single shot. They also give you the longest range out of any of your options for this shotgun. That's what I went with mine, and it makes this shotgun very effective at very long range. This does kind of work as sort of a pseudo sniper. I don't think it's as good as like the Breach in that role, where you put slugs in that, because then you can also put a scope and a suppressor on it, and that does help a lot more in that role. This one's still pretty good at very long ranges though, so if you do need to take shots with it, you can. And if you're firing against particularly big enemies, it's still very easy to hit them at basically any distance. And then for an internal, you have 3 options. You can either go with hair trigger, high powered, or high velocity. High velocity is pretty fun because you can go up to about 100 meters of effective range with the shotgun. So if you want to use it out that far, you actually can, and that can be an option that you could take. High powered gives you the most amount of damage, which is cool, but I don't find it entirely necessary with the older shotgun. It usually does plenty of damage. If you still want to one-shot stuff though, then that's a pretty decent option. And then hair trigger is the one that I went with, and probably the one I'd recommend the most. Just gets you a slightly faster rate of fire, so you can do follow-up shots a little bit quicker. This doesn't up your rate of fire immensely. I think you go from 6 to like 7.2. It's just, it feels a little bit snappier than it did otherwise, so that's why I usually go with it. With all of these on the older shotgun, I would actually keep the older shotgun in S tier. I don't think it goes up to S plus tier because I don't think it's that much crazier. The base older shotgun is really strong to begin with. Giving it slugs or flechettes is going to be the biggest bonus that this weapon gets. The other options are kind of nice for it, but aren't anything way crazy for it since it can already do a lot of crazy stuff already. But it is still a fantastic weapon and one of my favorites in Starfield. Now, there is one unique version of the Old Earth shotgun that we need to talk about, and that is called the Cursed. The Cursed you might have to do quests for, and it seems to be random on the amount of quests that you need to do. You can get this one in Cydonia. This one is found on Mars, and you have to do quests for the UC. It's in the shop right as you come in. You go to the left, and it's the oddball guy that's wants you to go out and find like recovered goods for him. Once you recover enough goods for him, then he will have this in his stock and you can buy it. The Cursed is a rare shotgun with a couple of mods on it. It actually has 4 mods on it, where it's got a short barrel, a choke, a stock, and it has high velocity on it, which all of those are perfectly fine for the shotgun. They're nice. And the quests that he gives you are not really that difficult. They're basically like go kill the raider quest and then pick up some items from them. So it's not very difficult to actually unlock this, and the gun doesn't cost a huge ton when it's available. This weapon does also have one unique effect on it, which is Frenzy. And Frenzy really doesn't matter all that much. Frenzy makes it so whenever you shoot an enemy, there's a chance to cause it to frenzy, so it will attack other nearby enemies. It can be useful, but it's pretty rare for that to actually trigger. It doesn't trigger very often. And with something like the 12 gauge where you're right up next to something, you're probably going to 1 or 2 shot it, and the frenzy effect likely isn't going to matter. Maybe it would if you're trying to use this at very long range and just get the frenzy effect to actually trigger, but even then you might kill it before it actually ever triggers the frenzy. So not an amazing unique weapon, but it is something that you can go and grab. There isn't any other unique versions of this weapon that you can get from quests or that you can buy that I'm aware of, but it is kind of cool that there's at least one. So should you use the older shotgun? Yeah, I would absolutely say so. If you like shotguns, this one's probably going to be a really good one. As long as you can get 12 gauge shells, it's going to be very solid and it's going to carry you throughout most of the game. I really enjoy this shotgun. Even though basically all the shotguns in this game are very, very good. Tell me your thoughts on the Old Earth shotgun down in the comments below. Tell me how you feel about it, how you like to build it, and where you would put it on the tier list. Thank you guys so very much for watching this. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye, everybody.